I was listening to some information, quite interesting, about dissociative identity disorder and the university system. Apparently nowadays, universities are almost like in competition with each other. They only accept the best of the best. And amongst these best of the best, there's also something that is required that some of them suffer from dissociative identity disorder. And I was thinking, why would they want people like that? They actually prefer students. And someone said these, VIP universities are universities in which all the leaders of the world are made actually resemble the Hunger Games. I never watched the Hunger Games, but it seems that everybody is in war with each other. And I'm like, why would they do such a thing? Now, the world changed a lot since the war in Europe, right? You can see it everywhere in art, architecture, the sciences. I mean, the world was so different before the First World War. They started financing psychology and psychiatry just to understand analysis, psychoanalysis, to understand why the old continent decided to go to war. Millions disappeared. Anyway, before the First World War, the center of science was Europe. All the scientists that was, getting rewarded, Nobel Prize and all that stuff, and having their names in every book. They were all out of universities from Austria and Germany and etc. France, Eastern Europe as well, Russia, Ukraine, I mean, etc. Um, and they were coming out of the university system in Europe. These universities was quite traditional. They were still very Aristotelian. They were focused on facts, logic, I suppose. And there was also an element of theology, as they were turned, they were very religious. But in fact, it was actually the church that financed most of these universities. And, theories, like the Big Bang and everything, it came out of the mind of theologians and the quantum, stuff and particle stuff. I mean, this comes from theology, all of this, you know. And the, study of astrology as well, the movement of the stars and everything, highly, highly invested, by church. So church always had a grip on, university system. There is quite an interesting book, God's Philosophers. It kind of tells you the struggle between the Aristotelian, science and church. There was a struggle, because church, had to change, and lots of, Greek natural philosophy had to be adapted. And the result was, the modern world the classic modern world, before the First World War. That was the result, you know. So the First World War happened and the world changed completely. It's almost like a war on beauty started. Universities in the United States started gaining more status. Universities in the United States became the center of the world. Everybody that used to be in Europe just moved to the United States. Scientists, professors, everybody. And their universities became the center of the world and the place most, ideas, theories, I mean, everything that we know past the Second World War, comes from the United States. Before that, it was everything came out of Europe, and then everything became focused in the United States. And I suppose in the beginning, the universities in the United States was quite traditional as well. But because the United States are quite capitalistic and, competitive, they have to change their system. So they kind of ditched the traditional stuff and they pretty much entered into competition, right, with each other. Who's going to put out the next, the next Tesla? Who's going to put out the next guy that's going to change the world, And for that, they needed students that were the top of the top, but also had no, shame, had no soul, had no, compassion. They were there to, destroy each other. And that's how, the future CEOs started being created in this environment, this ruthless, no compassion, no morality, no, they only care about is, being at the top, creating new markets out of thin air, even if it means mind control, even if it means psychological operations, if it means, gaslighting the entire world. This is very common still. They are coming up with new ideas to a new company, to a new this, a new that, and sometimes deplorable, immoral and illogical. But if there's enough idiots that like it, it's good because it's capitalist and it makes money. They don't care. Yeah? So the rest of the world started emulating the same behavior. Universities now, they only care about, the top of the top and, using the same words that the most hated person on Europe probably, used, the future leaders of the world, the young leaders of the world. That's where they come from. And they all have this pathological tendency. They all have this dissociation with people. They are proto-psychopaths or psychopaths, And they are coming out of these systems, They are the leaders of the world. And ever since, the leaders of the world start being created in these environments, the world has gone into decline. Yes, everything is weaponized. Everything is a crisis. Yes, and everybody who has a bit of critical thinking is considered, a danger, a threat. Yeah. Their goal is to make profit out of nothing. They literally invent new ideas. Talk about the woke thing. Why did it span? It's an ideology that was born there, and for the only purpose of it's a new fad. It's a new thing, and it sells. Right? And that's why they gave them, 1, 2, 3 months for them to party, because while they are partying, they are spending money on stuff, clothes, stuff. It's a business, It's like a drunken salesman. When they come to shore after months and months at the ocean and they have a pay, they will, explode everything while they are in shore, like a drunken salesman. That's why they give them holidays and they give them all celebrate, so they can, just spend all their earnings. It's one of the other sides of capitalism that nobody talks about. It's capitalism. Some say, oh no, it's corporatism and it's not fair. Yeah. They have really nothing bounding them. There's no rules for them, and they all, like the Windows Zero guy, definitely, suffers from some sort of this dissociative identity disorder. He has no conscience. It's impossible. When they make deals, like the juice, knowing perfectly that the juice is, harmful, deadly, but they don't care. It's the new it's the new thing. It's the, it's very, it's right or never. It's now or never, because everybody's so possessed by fear. They will eat anything that we give them. They just can't help themselves. Like almost like a shark when it feels blood in the water. They just attack. Well, now after some years, I mean, some people already knew from the beginning what was this all about, but now hundreds of people have been studying those files, and they knew it was harmful. They knew it was harmful, but they didn't care. These CEOs, these politicians, they don't care. They lack empathy and compassion, and they all come out from this system, this university system. Another thing I want to say about the university system is that in these, special universities, I'm not going to say where science is made, new developments is made. Sometimes they mix. There's always going to be the establishment, the rich kids, right? It's a pedigree. It's passed from generation to generation. They are accepted immediately in these universities because they are born in the right family, and they have the right connections and the right money. So, but from time to time they mix with poor kids that come from abroad. They give them a scholarship, and they just want to strip out of them everything they have, all of their inventions. They might come and be fooled that they are the top of the top in the top university, and they are fooled into cooperating. Let's make a project, a collaboration between all students, and that's when they are stolen out of their ideas. They get played, they get played, and then when they complain, the university then serves as jury and judge, and they always side with the rich kids. Then the rich kids, they found a company, and they probably give a job to the guy who invented the thing. Hey, you want to be the head of this department? I'll give you a job. And that's how things are. Very dark, very dark. You didn't have the funds anyway to continue with this project, so why fight it? You see, this happens. It's a spider web. Yeah. But anyway, the world changed a lot since they started, since they started putting these people in front of things who suffer from these disorders. They don't have ideas of themselves. They don't have thoughts of themselves. They don't have empathy. They are the perfect, to be in front, because I'm sure someone in the shadows will give them orders. But the shadow government, anyway. So this is just some ideas, thought experiments. I should have started like this. This is just a thought experiment. Yeah. I'm not a specialist. This is just, in the realm of hypothesis. So, all right.